Hello and welcome to your IBM update for August 2025, your monthly digest into what's been happening within the IBM community as reported by Proximity, your IBM partners for application development, support and maintenance. If you've spent any time in the IBM world, you'll know it's a bit like that trusty old Volvo estate that your uncle still drives. You remember the scene from the Dudley Moore film, Right Crazy People? They're boxy, but they're good. It's solid, dependable, has all the latest safety features, but everyone assumes it's from 1993. The reality, IBM is still very much alive, quietly powering banking systems, manufacturing plants, and supply chains across the globe. And it's still evolving, just not with flashy TikTok videos. In a recent article on the 400, Alex Woody discussed the pros and cons of IBM as described by real user reviews on G2, the online web community for those wishing to learn more on enterprise IT software. Here he discovered what people love about it and what makes them sigh into their coffee too. So, why do people love IBM? Well, first, it enjoys reliability that's borderline boring. IBM's uptime is ridiculous, but in a good way. We're talking near 100% uptime with no known viruses in the wild, levels of stability. One reviewer said that their IBM box has been running the same app for 20 years without failure. That's not just reliability, that's set it and forget it levels of stability. Secondly, it has security you can brag about. You see, while other platforms set alerts and are open to daily attacks, IBM just quietly shrugs off most threats. Access control, encryption, and integrated security features make it a favourite in industries where data breaches equal career-ending phone calls. Thirdly, the database is part of the furniture, and you'll know that DB2 isn't just bolted on, it's baked into the operating system. That means fewer moving parts, tighter performance, and fewer "who's responsible for this server again" conversations. Developers on Reddit have called it bulletproof for uptime and data integrity. And finally, users see IBM as modern-ish. Yes, it still runs RPG, but also supports SQL, REST APIs, Python, PHP, Node.js, and a few other trendy languages too. It's a bit like your dad learning how to use WhatsApp. While not quite Generation Z on Snapchat, we can still FaceTime with the rest of them. So, this is all good, right? Well, let's take a look at the not so great bits before we start high-fiving ourselves. First, IBM has a legacy stigma. Mention AS400 and watch younger developers' eyes glaze over. The green screen image is still burned into people's mind, even though with modern languages come more modern GUIs, which can be much more, modern. It's more of a branding problem than a tech one, but a problem that is real and a problem that remains. Secondly is a learning curve, and it was commented on in various forums that if you're brand new to the IBM, expect to climb a hill in the rain while carrying RDI manuals. The tools can be powerful, but they're not quite yet as instantly friendly as browser-based low-code platforms. Third, good talent is like unicorn dust, and finding skilled IBM professionals is getting harder. partly because many are retiring and not enough new blood is coming in. But thankfully there are reliable managed services available, such as our good sales Proximity, who can swoop in like the caped crusader when the bat signals light up the night sky. And finally, it's not so cheap for the little guys. For smaller businesses, licensing and maintenance costs can feel steep. However, on the flip side, the total cost of ownership can be lower over time. But that's a story for another day, in another update, with another cup of coffee. So, why does all this matter? Well, for organisations running business critical systems, IBM is like a reliable team member who never calls in sick, knows everything about the job, and doesn't need babysitting. But to keep it relevant, companies need to modernise the way they present, develop, and support it, updating interfaces, adopting modern languages, and investing in onboarding or equivalent services. So, while IBM might not make headlines like AI or quantum computing, it's quietly running the world behind the scenes. In tech, flashy doesn't always mean better, and sometimes a steady Eddie rather than a flash Harry is exactly what you need. Now, only a month ago we enjoyed the launch of the Power11, and with 4 weeks behind us, let's see how the press and markets reacted to the launch. I think it's fair to say that the response to the launch was well received. Tech writers and analysts appreciate Power11's strong emphasis on uptime, AI and security. However, there's a sense that the innovation leans towards evolutionary rather than revolutionary, somewhat dampening the broader excitement. I picked up on 4 press articles. First, Reuters characterised the launch positively. They highlighted energy efficiency, reliability, AI integration, and simplicity for enterprise deploying the AI. However, it also stressed that the market reaction was fairly muted, neither market frenzy or indeed, on the other side, disbelief. Tom's Hardware praised the robustness, particularly around ransomware resilience, but flagged that the 1-minute alert guarantee covers only detection, not remediation, indicating cautious praise with attention to detail. TechRadar took a strongly positive tone, celebrating Power11's architecture, hybrid cloud resilience, quantum-safe encryption, and performance gains, delivering a clear thumbs up from the online tech media company. The Times of India emphasised IBM's smart positioning with Power11, enriching enterprise AI interfaces without trying to go head-to-head with NVIDIA, reinforcing the messaging of a sensible specialisation in that area. To expand on the market sentiment of the Power11 launch, I took time with David Spurway and discussed his thoughts on the launch, the future of IBM Power, and its place within the enterprise. David, thank you for joining the IBM update. Now, you're an AI and security principal at IBM and talk all over the world on all things power. In the past few weeks, we enjoyed a major announcement on Power, the release of Power11. And you were there at the event. So first, can you tell me a little more about the buzz around the announcement and the response from the people and the press there?
Surely, yes, absolutely. Yes, I had the pleasure actually of being at the global announcement. This is one of the first ones we ever did actually in Europe, as opposed to normally being dominated by our US colleagues. But we were in Munich and we had a great number of people, very filled room. I was part of a demo room showing off new capabilities within the technology, and we had a very good buzz, lots of people asking great questions there, lots of interaction taking place, and we had a great pickup. We also had part of that session was also done remotely, so we had in the region of about 3,000 different people joined in.
Wow.
And we had one of these situations where we actually had most of the people who said they were going to come did come, which is not always guaranteed by any means, but we had nearly 3,000 attendees on our virtual session, which was nearly 90% uptake, which gives us a very strong indication that we're actually on the right lines here.
Excellent, that's good. Now, there are many, many technical details released about Power11, but before we get into those, how would you describe the Power11 release to someone outside of the Power or IBM ecosystem?
Okay, sure. Yeah, so as ever, we always have the technical bits, as you say, inside. But with what I think we actually focus on here was a little different from what we've done in the past. We had this idea of what happens if we go and talk to other bits of IBM, other bits of stuff we actually could work with. Could we bring together a solution that is actually going to be end-to-end kind of world, from the software that we can work with that can help us with our overall solution, that can then understand Power better, to the storage that we actually work with? Could we couple with that to be able to give better cybersecurity solutions? Oh yes, and then we get faster and better and more as well. But actually we started with this full stack idea of what do our customers actually have, what the things that are hitting them particularly hard, how can we help that, and how can we as a bigger IBM, focusing on IBM Power, bring it all together in a package that will actually be able to be accessible and useful to them.
Excellent. That's a great overview. Thank you, David. From a technical standpoint, what would you say are the standout innovations in Power11 that make it different to Power 10, whether that's in performance, security, or indeed AI capabilities?
Yes, all of them. So what we did was we focused on a number of different pieces. What we've actually worked on particularly is we had a piece where customers were finding that thankfully the unplanned outages with IBM Power, they do happen. We're not entirely bulletproof, but they're uncommon. We don't often have issues with unplanned outages. What we did find was that a lot of our customers were finding the planned outages, they were a pain. And so there was a variety of different touch points. You could come in from here to do that patch and there do that patch, and lots of different touch points, and that was problematic. And so we focused on some of those areas to be able to make that kind of issue lower, targeting at least, and in some cases being able to achieve actual zero planned downtime, so that we can have maybe a single button. It could be a kind of overall system which is actually beyond just Power, or it could be an element within Power that can do this, a single button that can actually manage the whole patching process to mean that you don't have any outage to your service, and so we can look after that behind the scenes and make sure that happens. And other areas we've also looked at similarly is that raising a support call with IBM can be a bit of a challenge, and so you need to know an awful lot to be able to say, I think you're going to want these things, and you'd have to have quite in-depth skills to be able to do that. But I had my son come and join me before the launch, and he spent a week of work experience with me, and he was able to run the process where you actually press a button, raise a support call, and upload all the logs direct to IBM. So he doesn't know how to actually establish a full dump of the kernel, but with a single button on the HMC, he's now able to upload the whole lot, get it all into IBM, and have the brain boxes behind the scenes and support begin to address our problem. So things like that were actually the sorts of things which we focused on as a couple of the key areas. But you're also quite right. We've also got cybersecurity. We've also got the AI side. We've got lower energy amounts being used. We have greater performance, all these different things. So it's quite a lot of different things we're changing all at the same time.
Yeah, so if we expand on that, but with a more business hat on, for organizations who are currently perhaps on Power 9 or earlier even, what would you say is the strongest business case for upgrading now rather than later?
Okay, sure. So yes, as you say, if we're going to be in the even before Power 9, what you don't want to be is running on unsupported hardware. There's lots of reasons for that, but there was actually a smart man in IBM that was something they call an IBM Fellow, which basically means you've done very good technical stuff and you can do anything you like after that. But he coined the phrase that software eventually works and hardware eventually breaks, which is pretty true in my experience so far. But that's one of the reasons why you want to get off the unsupported elements. Another strong reason, of course, is cybersecurity. That's in everybody's view these days. It's in the board, it's in the, people are talking about the pub, it's everywhere. So you want to make sure you can access the fat patches that come out for the hardware, for the operating systems, to make sure you stay in that realm of avoiding any known vulnerabilities and be able to get those done quickly. And so that's another good reason to get off anything unsupported and move upwards. And then, of course, we can also deliver great financial benefits at that point. You end up using less energy, using less software, therefore lower support charges. We can be able to make things actually save you money, as well as avoiding all those nasties you might otherwise expose yourself to.
Thank you, David. That's perfect. Now, one of the big talking points for Power11 is in its AI readiness. Could you perhaps walk us through what that actually means for customers, in the shops running IBMI? Are we talking here about the hardware optimization, integration with accelerators such as Spire, or something else entirely? And how would IBMI shops take advantage of these things?
Yeah, absolutely. And as I'm giving the answer a couple of times now. Yes, but yes, exactly. All those different pieces, bits and pieces, are all part of the possible way we can do this. We're finding as we go out to customers and talking about AI on Power, we've been demonstrating quite a bit of the process by which we know that the generative AI, which again is on everybody's lips, and again that's including everybody down the pub and everywhere else, is everyone's talking about generative AI, and that can be useful to us. It can run directly on Power. You need to have either a Power 10 or a Power 11 to be able to do those things. If you try and do it with the earlier versions, they don't have the stuff inside the servers to be able to make that really work properly. But we've had demonstrations of, well, this is how AI can sometimes make stuff up. And if it doesn't know the answer, it can sometimes make stuff up, called hallucination. Also, it can potentially be out of date. But what we can actually do is, working with the data inside of your IBM Power, we can target that and use something called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, to make sure that you know where it's getting its answers from, which means it doesn't make them up because it's got them from a good source. It's updated because you know the source. And this can be done inside of IBM Power. One of the examples we're doing at the moment is an IT operations chatbot of that nature, going through and saying, how do I check the error report inside of an IBM? How do I find out what errors are happening inside of an IBM Power? And it will read the documentation, can bring back chunks, and be able to give you those answers. That's the sort of thing that sits maybe in Linux on the Power box, but we can also bring IBMI into this discussion. So IBMI, of course, vital source of high-powered data. You can do machine learning directly inside of IBMI. That's being done by others. We can do that there. It can also be part of what we can link with this larger version of AI as well. We can have AI maybe running the as a service world, this agentic kind of stuff that brings in tools and works out. It doesn't know an answer. We can call to something. I'll be demoing that in the Tech Exchange event in October about how we link with IBMI and bring that into that AI conversation so it can be part of that. So it can be AI running on Power. It can be AI running with Power. And as you quite rightly said, we can have it accelerated inside the Power box. And then once you get it to a certain scale, you might need to get bigger, ready for the enterprise. And for me, that's what Spire is about. Spire will be coming by the end of the year. It's the sort of thing which will go into an I/O drawer and then we can attach to the Power systems. And it's a get bigger button as far as I'm concerned. Do something, get to a stage where the proof of concept is going, is helping, but I need to get larger. That's where Spire can help. And it will also be a really easy thing to integrate. One of the ideas of Spire is that you change kind of single line of the code. Instead of pointing this way, point that way, and then everything gets faster. And so it doesn't need to be a great big complicated, difficult thing to get to grips with, sort of thing which requires an awful lot of IT knowledge. It can be something where, again, you've been doing a thing, let's just make it bigger, and off we go.
Got you. And you did mention generative AI, but I will stay on the subject of AI just for a little longer, if I may. IBM has talked about hybrid AI, which is a combination of, correct me if I'm wrong, symbolic, neural, and generative. But
nice.
What does all this look like in practice on the IBMI?
Sure, okay. Well, the demo we're working with at the moment, I'm just off the call actually talking about it, is that we can work with this, again, as you say, with AI in different places. We could have some AI running on the Power box. It can be part of this IT operations chatbot. We can also have AI running somewhere else and be able to come back down to where we actually have our vital source of data, the IBMI, and where it's got the information that sits there and is vital to have. So these kinds of tools that we're talking about, the generative AI works out, it doesn't know the answer, and a good way to do this is be able to bring in other forms of information, API calls down into IBMI, getting information from that. We can also use it the same sort of way of maybe setting up a chatbot. We're going to be demonstrating a kind of insurance example where you might want to raise a claim, and the AI works out what it is you want to do and then populates the IBMI database so it can come back and forth in both directions. That, as well as I say, of the IT operations kind of world of what is going on inside my Power Box, that can also be queried by one of these tools and be able to give you answers in that sense as well. So it's linking stuff up together, can be hybrid cloud, can be entirely on-prem depending on what you're after and the use case is, but as you say, we can link them up and make sure that the vital IBMI piece doesn't sort of stay as a legacy element sitting in the corner, because it can absolutely be part of this conversation.
And one final question, just for a little bit of clarity, perhaps for our users out there. Where do you see the biggest opportunity for AI on IBMI? Is it within perhaps code creation for particular elements or modernization? Is it within business process automation, data analytics, or would you see there being something entirely different?
Yes, interesting. So many possible options. We know that we'll be able to bring in certain things where we can at least help to bridge the skill gaps. That's lots and lots of excitement about the IBM Watson-X Code Assistant for I, which is initially going to be looking at describing. So we're going to be looking at the RPG code, describing that using the generative AI. It will then, the plan is, it'll be able to generate it as well. That's this kind of idea. But initially, we'll be looking to have it actually describe what's going on. And that can be done at the level where the vice president who wants to know what this thing does, or it can be the sort of thing where it can help you bring in new RPG programmers. They can get to learn what's going on very, very quickly and easily using these kinds of tools, allowing the people that are doing the busy day job running the system to get on with the more important tasks and have the more basic stuff done by the juniors. So that's one area that we certainly see AI being very important for IBMI, but I think it's also something where we'll actually have the AI, again, the IBMI, not just relegated to the legacy kind of corner. And so that's again where I feel AI will be able to bring things in. We'll have new things like what's next or data, which can include IBMI in this conversation, to be full of data fabrics, having I for serving up part of the answer, maybe other parts of the answer coming from other places, and us be able to bring them together and show the modern answers that we can do, including I, as part of that answer.
It's exciting times, I think, ahead of us, David, for AI. But moving on to sustainability, and sustainability is on many boards' agendas these days.
Yes.
How does Power11 address energy efficiency and environmental impact?
Surely, yes. We have worked within the hardware itself to be able to find ways that we can actually do what we did before, but using less energy. And so we can deliver maybe the same performance, maybe better performance with less energy inside the Power Boxes than previous generations. And what we can also do, and again, like my son did when he came in and did his work experience, was he pressed a button inside the Power Box and was able to lower the energy used by the server by a factor of 30%, while the actual use of the performance of the box came down by 10%. Obviously, you don't want anything to come down when it's really, really busy, but if you've got a kind of calm period, if your weekends aren't quite so frantic, for example, you can schedule this sort of thing where you lower the energy used, because even when it's waiting, it still uses energy quite heavily, and that lowers your energy bill. And you can automate this whole process and not mean that you drop the same performance level, but only a small drop in performance while using a lot less energy, lowering your bill, enabling you to return back to your end customers the fact that you're supporting the green agenda and moving forward in sustainability sense, and be able to move that forward. And we also can see newer things coming in the future about next generations of power beyond Power11. We'll go even further in that space. So there's lots more to come as well.
Terrific. Two big thumbs up for both for people environmentally and also for the money side of things too. So excellent. Yes. Now, David, you're known as a bit of a visionary out there. So if I asked you to step back and look 5 years down the road, what do you think the ideal IBMI platform looks like? Hardware, software, and AI working together, or indeed something entirely new?
No, indeed. I think as you described, all working together, yes, absolutely that. Well, we continue to be able to evolve that. We have our friends in IBM Research coming up with brand new ideas of what we can actually do on the silicon level. And of course, what we have the privilege of doing is owning the whole lot. So we can work out brand new things to do with the actual silicon technology. Then we can wrap the servers around them, and they will continue to do that and evolve that, making use of the new technologies that come down the line. And yes, I think AI will be a strong part of that. It's a kind of world of where we've heard it described before, doing the dull, the dirty, and the dangerous. And thankfully, there isn't too much dangerous going on inside of the IBM Power boxes, but some of the tasks could be maybe described as a little bit dull. And so that's the sort of thing where the AI doesn't get bored, it continually monitors the thing, and it can therefore look into what's going on, look at the logs. Is something beginning to, start doing an awful lot of outbound contact? And previously, it was quite a quiet little service. Have I been hacked? Is there something going on in here? So I think we'll be able to have AI monitoring for cyber attacks inside the box at the same time, complementing what we had before, complementing the IBMI, and IBMI, of course, will continue to evolve as well. Steve Will and the team have visions for the next multiple generations, moving well out beyond 2030, 2039, I think was one chart I was presenting recently, with brand new things coming up in the future. And all of that we can make sure continues to be integrated, which of course is what IBMI has always been about.
Don't forget the I, of course, yes. And finally, for customers planning their strategy now, what would be the one piece of advice that you give them to make the most of Power11 and the AI tools coming from IBM?
Okay, so to do AI on Power, you need to be looking at either Power 10 or Power 11. So as you described, if you're in an older version, Power 9 has been a great service, been a great platform, but you might want to consider getting off that. If you're on older versions, make sure you are looking at that. You can work with us, our IBMers, but of course our wonderful ecosystem with our business partners out there can help you be able to plan your route forward. Part of that should be making sure that you maintain the levels of the IBMI operating system you're working with, because some of the older ones you can't support the older ones can't support the newer hardware, and you're beginning to expose yourself to possible known vulnerabilities at that point. So make sure you're staying current, and then you can work with us to be able to plan your route forward and see what methods you can do with AI. There are lots of people are talking about it. What would be beneficial to you? What sort of thing would help your business with AI? And then we can help you see how we can make sure IBMI is a strong part of that moving forward as well.
Absolutely. Good advice as always. And David, thank you so much for your time, and indeed for always being such a passionate advocate and invaluable resource for the IBM Power community. It's always
my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. A pleasure having you on the IBMI update. Thank you very much.
Most kind, sir. Thank you very much indeed.
And my thanks to David for taking the time to join me this month. And that's it for August 2025. For more like this and previous episodes, please see our blog on the Proximity website and LinkedIn, of course. But for now, I'm Andrew Nicholson. We're Proximity, your IBMI application support and development partners that are in your corner. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.